Are you weird? I know I am, and it turns out there's actually a test, and it's not what you think. I was reading this article, Relationability is Not Weird, and it describes the whole concept of weird as being Western, educated, industrialized, rich, and democratic, and that's in regards to the information that you take in and the world views that you go by, and that is actually a really important thing to consider, given that the information we consume kind of is the stepping stones for literally everything. However, everything being what shapes the world, that actually is more serious than people might initially think, because when we go through point by point, Western, not everything is Western, and not everything holds Western views. And when you have like a very narrow-minded, like very specifically Western stereotype for, like, example, medical knowledge or educational like archetypes, you end up with statistics such as a really disproportionate, overwhelming mortality rate amongst infants in darker skin, because people who work in hospitals have not been taught what medical diagrams look like on darker skin, so things like bruises and internal bleeding often gets missed. And that is the framework about what we base our entire education on. Western, like anything that does not fit a very narrow-minded Western viewpoint, just gets essentially chucked out into the garbage, and there is a whole lens that you never encapsulate the entirety of what the world actually is, especially with the diversity of different cultures. Educated is the exact same thing. So I myself am a person of like a lot of neurodiversity and learning difficulties. I will often lose in an argument with someone who is more educated than me, not because I'm any less smart, although sometimes that does happen, but when my brain physically does not work the same way as yours, I will struggle to articulate what my point is. And my point might be very valid, like, let's say, for example, why women choose the bear. There is a whole archetype of men who think that it's about women wanting to be with a bear, and they go like, oh, silly woman, why would you choose to be with an animal that would maul you to death instead of a man? But when I am overwhelmed and exhausted, I do not have the same stamina fucks to give, or just like everything that comes in regards to where the privilege of that man is, which means that it will look like I might lose the argument. However, my point is still really valid, especially when that shapes my direct safety and what my direct statistics of like survival are in the face of someone who may or may not understand it. Industrialized, rich, and democratic are also very encapsulating lenses. It all very much hinges on the assumption that everything will fall into line with certain lenses, and I think that comes across as a bit white supremacist, for lack of a better term. It comes across as very exclusive. Yes, like, I don't know, it comes across as very exclusive, and it's just like ruling out the reality of what the wider world actually is. And I don't know, I can't think off the top of my head the statistics, but like not everyone is a white man in the 1950s in a classroom, which is when the majority of like what certain standards, bills, laws, and papers were published. And like also everything from ADHD medication to like assumptions to even the calendar. Like when you look at like the calendar of why like some months have like 30 days and some months have 31, and then like the whole daylight saving, if you change the entire calendar to a 28-day month, it would be in line with like basically women's bodies and periods. It would be more harmonious with the way the whole world, the seasons work, everything works. But because someone who had weird thinking, and that is like real weird thinking, like someone westernized, someone educated, someone industrialized, someone rich, someone democratic, they decided that something was the standard, and their refusal, or perhaps ignorance, or perhaps their lack of touch with what the reality of this world actually is. We now have 30-day months, or like 31-day months, or sometimes a leap year, and it's just like very random and irregulated and non-logical, and it's just a man-made law that doesn't actually flow harmoniously in the cycle of like all of nature, everyone's bodies, body clocks, everything. And I cannot stress enough, when you have built your whole world on weird thinking, Western, educational, industrialized, rich, and democratic, you can sort of understand a little bit why the world is so fucked.